Welcome back, and today is the day we've all been waiting for, or at least when this is done, is the day I've been waiting for. Working on the 60 Buick flat top here. Finally got in all of our Airride kit from Twisted Images out of Oklahoma. We opted for their Stage 2 kit. I'm gonna run through everything that comes with this. It's really nice pieces. They put together almost everything you need. I'm gonna do a couple things a little differently. Gonna add a couple things, and I'll walk you through all that. But to get started, let's talk about the hardware aspect of it. Here, they supply their front brackets, super beefy. I don't know, maybe 3/16, welded nice. Got their front lower brackets. We have their front uppers, rear upper brackets. All this, I mean, this is even beefier. What's that, 1/4 inch? I mean, welded nice. All this stuff looks good. It's gonna get weld-on rear saddles. I will say, I think this is the only welding part of the whole kit. Everything else should be bolt-on. Real straightforward. I'll walk you through how to do that. Shock relocators. After talking with Phil, the guy that runs Twisted Images, he supplied us with a part number, and we'll go over that when we put these on. They haven't came in yet, so we'll get the shock part number for that. The rear shocks will be stock. That'll work fine. For airbags, running two different ones here. Slam Specialties in the front and an Airlift in the back. I think this is the Dominator 2600. I'm terrible, I probably should have made sure exactly what that is, but Airlift Dominator, Slam Specialties. These are great, both are great bags. The cool thing about the Slam Specialties is it has anti-ballooning, so the diameter of the bag never gets bigger through compression or expansion. It's pretty sweet. And that's pretty much the hardware part of it, I guess you'd say. Well, also, I guess we can include dual, yes, I know Ellis, dual Viair 480 compressors. This is a big car. It's gonna take a lot of air volume to get this thing up and down with these big airlift bags. We just went ahead and stepped up for the dual compressors, so they have to work less, and we have to listen to them hum less. I don't know, it just made sense for me. Stepped up to those. Have the 5-gallon polished aluminum air tank, which, as pretty as this is, kind of a shame it's going to be hidden up under the package tray. And it comes with the mufflers, remote mount kit for the mufflers. We have relays and fuses, hardware kits, multiple airline fittings things. We have the harness for the management system and an air dryer. Now, this is one of the parts I'm going to add. This is an air dryer. It works great, especially here in Georgia where we have tons of humidity. Just to help out, it's hot here in Georgia. We don't want these compressors to build up a bunch of air or a bunch of water in our air tank and bags, and it causes failures in the manifold. We don't want that. A little extra protection there. The whole kit is all 3/8 airlines, so it's faster than 1/4, but not half. It's kind of a nice happy spot in the middle. The car goes up and down at a nice rate of speed, but isn't like real violent like the 1/2 inch or super slow like the 1/4. It's good happy medium. But here we are to the really cool part. It's the Airlift Performance 3P system. So this is a pressure-based manifold, and it comes with what I just love, the little controller here. It's so neat. Once this is all wired up and lit up, this looks cool. Find a nice place to mount this, maybe in an ashtray under the seat. We'll figure that out. And this pressure-based system will allow us to set the ride height off of each individual bag pressure, and then it records it so it's repeatable. So for instance, we could have like our parking setting, which will be just obviously laying the chassis on the ground. Then we'll have our ride height will be whatever, let's call it X air pressure. We'll get it out in the parking lot, set it where we like it, and record that. So every time we go from parked to want to go to ride height, all we do is hit one button. No figuring it out, making sure it's level, none of that. And then we'll call like our loading setting or our speed bump setting will be even higher, probably about as high as it goes. That way we can get over things, in and around things, and not have to worry about bottoming out, scraping, etc. This also comes with its own wiring harness, which I think that's I got them backwards. This is the harness for the compressors. That one's for this. Here's a bunch of instructions that we probably won't read, and a warranty card we definitely won't fill out. We'll definitely forget about that. Yeah. Now the easy part is over, the buying the stuff. Now comes the hard part. We actually have to put it on. I'm gonna start with the rear because I already have the springs out for doing exhaust, so it makes the most sense. Tag along, I'm gonna try to show you step by step on how to do this, walk you through the process. So if you have a 59 or 60 Buick, this will be exactly how you do it. If you have anything else, it's basically the same concept with just variations in brackets. So stick around, it's about to be fun. All right, once you have the coil spring out, you can see this is the lower mounting bolt and mounting pad. This has to be cut off, ground smooth. Up top, also have another centering bolt here. That has to be cut off, ground smooth. And for reference, I always like to measure from, you know, a common point on the frame rail, let's say the furthest point away from it to the center of that. And same thing with this lower mount, from the center of this to somewhere on the backing plate that you'll remember to get you a reference. Now I think if you look, the spring set a little to the outside. I think we're going to move it over a little bit just for a little extra clearance, maybe an inch or so. We'll confirm, but this way we know exactly where they were at, so we could go back and reference it. Now we have to make this side look like this side. As you can see, I went ahead and cut these off, cut the bolt down. All this is ready to go. Now we're going to put a bag and bracket together, put this up here, and kind of see what she's looking like. Pre-assembled our bags here. Top cups on, just snug the hardware. This is just kind of what we'd call the mock-up stage. Bottom perch is on, a couple bolts snugged up. A couple things to note here. We went ahead and painted the inside of this. Didn't paint the outside because all of this is going to get, well, this is going to get welded. Once it's welded, then we can paint the whole top of it. But we won't be able to get to this very well. Let's put a couple coats on that, as well as the top. Got our bolts kind of snugged up like we said here. And make sure you keep your port either with a plug in it or a piece of tape on it. I just don't like getting debris in the bag. It just can't be good for it. Yeah, we're gonna put these ports with, it'll sit on the axle. Let's see, it'll straddle the axle. So, whoa, careful now. Say the axle's going this way. This is the driver's side. We're gonna put the port inward because that's what I feel like. It'd be a little easier to drill over on this side. So that's what we're going with. When it's assembled, we can kind of put it up into place and map out where it's gonna live. With the rear airbag assembly in place, just kind of go around with your hand and make sure it's not gonna hit anything. You know, I can fit my hand all the way around it. It's pretty happy right here. It's not exactly where the factory coil spring, it's actually a little inboard from where it sat originally, but it was just a little happier. Otherwise, it was really close to the frame right here, like couldn't even fit a fingertip. So we scooted it over a little bit. I think that's where it wants to live. We'll make sure that the lower bracket is square to the axle housing. And if you haven't taken an old tape measure and cut it off, I just recommend it. It's really easy to work with. On this car particularly, it's like 8.5 inches to the outside edge right here. We'll just check it front and back, make sure it's square. Once we know that, we'll give it some tacks on the corners. Then we're going to take a Sharpie and mark the perimeter of the upper cup, and that'll give us a template to drill our holes for the top. I'll show you. Now with the back all in place and mocked up, time to move to the front. I'm going to kind of walk you through some of the early steps, and we'll work a little bit and catch you up as we go. Because you get in these fender wells or like up under this rear end, it's so hard to film by myself and do the work. You're just basically looking at the back of my head and I'm blocking what's going on. So I'll walk you through some sizes and some steps and procedures. We'll catch up along the way. For the front disassembly, we're gonna start with the sway bar end link, 9/16, comes down through there, 9/16 nut on the bottom. That'll be easy enough. These bushings are shot. We'll have to be on the hunt for some of those guys. Then we're going to follow the disassembly with the shock. It'll also be 9/16, 2 bolts there. And up top, should be able to, boop, see back in there, the little stud sticking up. That'll be 9/16 as well. That'll get us loose here. We're going to also take off the tie rod, little cotter pin here. I believe this is 3/4, we'll double check. And then we're going to take this one off from the upper ball joint. Just just because I don't know, I like doing that better and you don't have to take the whole hub assembly off. I'll give you some tips on how to break all this loose. With the tie rod off, confirmed was 3/4. All it takes is a couple swings of your purse, knocks that loose. Time for the upper ball joint. Now, we're actually going to use the spring pressure to help us out on this one. Stuff like this, you have to smack the ever-loving Jesus out of it to get this to come out. With the coil spring still in, it's pushing the lower control arm down, obviously, spindle down, so it's literally trying to pull this apart. So with the spring in, it actually gives us a little advantage to help it pull down. Don't have to smack it nearly as hard, or I say that and then it'll fight me, but I'll show you. Now, we've loosened the nut, you can see right there the little gap, but we still have full thread engagement, so that'll allow it for it to drop down, but not shoot off into orbit with that spring. Those things have tons of tension, so you have to be careful. Move around to the other side where I can actually get a better swing on it here. Oop, just like that. See it drop down? And I really didn't even hit it that hard. Now, I'll show you how to take these springs out the safest way that I've found. With the car roughly 2 feet off the ground, it's on the lift. You can do this on jack stands, I've done it before. We've put a jack up under the spring pocket here. Obviously this shock's out because that wouldn't allow the control arm to drop down all the way. We're gonna go up with the jack until we see the gap right here close up. And that'll know that we have the spring. Actually, you can see the control arm going up a little bit. So, see right there? All right, now we can take this nut off, which is gonna be hard to do one-handed. Hold please. There we go. Now, whoop, nut's off. Don't lose that guy. I have to reuse that guy. Now we can slowly let the jack down. Come here. All right, so you can see right there, the hub assembly fell away, so we're loose. And now slow. I mean, ease it down. Make sure everything's loose. There's no problems. Okay. Ease it down. Until you're all the way down. And now your spring. There we go. Spring's loose. Pop it out of place. We can continue the disassembly. This lower plate here, she's got to go. Upgrading it with a bag mount lower plate, and it's riveted on 1, 2, 3, 4 rivets. These things are a pain in the butt. I know because I already practiced on that side. So what I found to work the best with these is I just cut an X. See, I cut a little X in the head of it, and I take my little air hammer, and then it's going to be kind of tricky one-handed. Woo! Like that. There we go. Now these guys, we're just gonna have to drill them out. It sucks. I tried on the other control arm to use the air hammer and push them through. I tried to heat it up with a torch, they're just stuck. Take your time. I start with an 1/8 inch bit, do 5/16, and usually that'll get it small enough where you can kind of bump it out. Sometimes you might have to go all the way out to like whatever the 1/2 inch or 7/8, whatever this is. Just take your time and you can push them through. Got a rivets drilled out here, a little paint put on them. Don't want these to rust, you know, to match the rest of the car. Start out with an 1/8 inch bit, went to a 19/64, and then on to a 7/16. Worked good, got them, and it left just a little edge so I could just bump it through with the chisel. No problem there. Next task, we got to open up these spring pockets a little bit. So up in here you can see it's got these 3 tabs that will center the upper cup mount, but there's not just quite enough room for the bag to go up there and not have any chance of rubbing. So you can kind of see we drew a line around here. Basically we're cutting off this lip here and another 3/8. I got a little buck nasty right there, but trying to make a nice little radius for it and end right over here. Same thing for the back side. Just trying to make a nice little radius around it. Get that cut out. I'm going to use a 4.5 inch grinder with a cutoff wheel. Double check it, grind our edges, and that'll be one more spring pocket ready to go. Now with all that cut out, we have plenty of room for activities. Also you can see there's 3 little tabs in there. You can see this one back towards the back. That one went ahead and trimmed it. I'll show you why. I'll show you what it looks like. So where the shock went through in the center, that's where our stud's gonna go up and through, which I trimmed about 1.5 inches off of that. They were a little long. Look there. Plenty of room around the bag. Little tight back there. We'll double check it. Yeah, we'll go up and down, make sure everything looks good, but looks nice all in all. The way this kit comes, it comes with an air fitting that goes straight up, and you could drill right next to your alignment hole, but the problem I've seen here is the upper control arm. Well, it would be right there in the way, and this thing's gonna move up and down a bunch. So what I've come up with is instead I've put this 90-degree fitting on it, drilled a hole in the side of our bag bracket, because I noticed there's this big open hole in the frame. So the idea here, theoretically, put my bag down, is it'll come out of the bracket, out of the bag bracket, it'll go this way, and then I'm gonna put it, probably enlarge this already factory hole right here, come back out of the frame there, and then it'll just follow our fuel line down, at least on the passenger side. Driver's side doesn't have a fuel line, but same concept. It'll follow the outside of the frame, front to rear. At least we're gonna give that a try. Let's see how it works out. Today, it's gonna be a big day. We're gonna install the tank, compressors, all of the fun components you'll actually get to see. Been working getting the hard parts on the car, the bag mounts, shock relocators, cutting all the old stuff out of the way, all the stuff that you'll never see. Now we get to try to figure out like how to position everything and make it look cool and function properly and hopefully not leak. We'll see. At the end of the day, who knows, maybe, fingers crossed, maybe fire it up and see if we can get some. I'm not gonna get my hopes up, because I mean, everything with this car has been fine to me. Let's be honest, this is no exception. I'm gonna walk you through some of the things that come with the kit, some of the things I'm gonna change about the kit. Now don't get me wrong, it's great. It's got everything you would need to put it in, but I'm gonna like try to tuck the tank away, and I'm gonna do some little things I'll walk you through, just my little options of doing it this way. I always suggest trying to lay your stuff out in, you know, a semi-organized, not messy way, to kind of get an idea of everything you have. It does come with instructions here. Kind of shows you the basic plumbing and routing. Got that as well as Airlift has their instructions. I just like to lay out the fittings and you know, pairs or whatever, you know, put them all together, So we know we got 3 of those, 2 of those, 1, I don't know what that guy's for. We just kind of figure it out as we go. A couple of relays for our compressors, inline T here for our pressure switch, all that stuff. And we have our pretty tank here. This is the 5-gallon polished aluminum Airlift tank. We're plumbing it up almost like the picture. You're gonna have your pressure relief valve here. You're gonna have your compressor in on either side here on the ends. I opted to use these 90s. Just, it makes the leader hose flow a little better into it. I've kind of already set it in the trunk and got an idea. Just what I've come up with. And then you have your feed, where it'll come out of here to the manifold. This guy. Then obviously the drain. A couple things I found with putting in the car. I put it on top of under the package tray, and I'll show you here in a second. The way they want you to do it is they want you to put this little drain valve right here. But I'm gonna have the tank, so let's set it like this to give you an idea. I have the tank here, the compressor here, and then the manifold sitting in between them. And there's not gonna be really a way to get up under here to drain it, at least not with my big fat arms. So what I've opted to do is I'm rigging up a remote drain system for it. So we put a 90 in here. It's going to take a 3/8 hose. We're going to run the 3/8 hose. Either I've done them through the wheel well, inside of the trunk. We'll pick out what looks best. So it'll have a 3/8 hose coming to wherever we decide, and we'll put either this or a ball valve or something on the end of it. And that way we have a way to drain it without trying to like sneak our arm up in here. You'll see more. It'll make more sense when we get everything actually laid out in here. So this is a little different. It's a little optional thing, and you will have to get some fittings. We have a local like heavy duty truck shop. They keep a lot of these air fittings in stock. And yeah, just take them up there, explain what you're doing, and they can usually get you figured out. Same thing with our air dryer here. It comes with all the bushings and stuff, and you can see on the instructions, they want you to use the bushing to put the air dryer and kind of mount it right here. And it also has a drain on it. Once again, it's going to be a little tricky to get to. So what I'm going to do is I put a regular, just 3/8 female, I guess you'd say, and it will feed out of the tank, and I'll have this remote mounted over on the fender well where we can get to it pretty easily, and then it'll come out of the dryer back to the manifold, all tucked away. And just, I don't know, it makes a little more sense to me in this particular application where I'm going to put it. With all that being said, you'll see that something's a little different here. That's because the way that the trunk, where I'm going to put it, even with this guy, this would be almost touching the floor, because these legs, where it sits, it's like a 1/4 inch recessed area in the trunk. So I whipped up these guys. It's just some 1/8 wall 1x1 tubing. I put a little 15-degree angle on it to give it some character, welded up the ends, and on top, since it's 1/8 wall, I drilled and tapped it to put some little 1/4-20 bolts in the top of it right there. These will get welded to the floor, so it'll be kind of our tank risers, if you will, and everything will get painted black and it'll probably disappear, but they just add a little character with a little cut on the end. I mean, just take the extra few minutes. I probably don't have an extra 10 minutes, and cutting some little 1/8 stock. I have some 1-inch strap. Just cut that up, weld it up, grind it off. It'll probably never get seen, but this is one of the things that no one will notice that you did it, but everyone will notice if you don't do it. Just take the little extra time. Now we're going to put this in there, get those tacked up, start mounting up the compressors. We'll show you some of that stuff. And I'm trying to come up with something cool. The dang air compressor, like I was saying, going to come up with some kind of neat way to mount the manifold. This plate on top that you read and looks cool, it's reversible. I've already flipped it around. I've already mounted in all of our outlet fittings. I want to put this in here and make it look cool so you can see it, but not look too in your face and not take up trunk space. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. We're going to kind of mock it up, set it up in there. I don't know. I'm getting excited. We're getting close. I can feel it. Jumping in the trunk here, you can see got a little work done. There's our little brackets welded to the floor, tank bolted in. These things look cool. Went ahead and ran us a piece of hose for our drain. Haven't hooked the rest of that up. That's a later situation. Kind of laying things out here where I want it. Compressors are going to be there, facing, I guess you say facing that way. It'd be cool. Went ahead, whipped us up a little bracket right here, triangulated it down to the back, and so that will mount there, like so, with compressors on either side. I think it'll work out pretty dang good for us. Set the compressors in. Obviously, we got one here, had the other one. We just take a little pick tool, we go in here, we mark where our nut certs are going to be. You could bolt this. I just don't have someone here to help me because Taylor refuses to help me with anything cool. Just going to nut cert those in. It'll be fine. It's got these little rubber isolators on the feet of it to keep the vibration down. Yeah, one more step. All right, now under the bottom, as you can see, we're under the driver's side wheel well. It had a factory plug right here, so I just enlarged it slightly. Rubber grommet, just remember, everything gets rubber grommets. If the air hose passes through it, the thick ones, don't cheap out. Come down to an adapter, or to, excuse me, 3/8 hose to a male to a bushing to the factory little whoop, 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 whoop. So we should be able just to reach up under here, psst, drain the tank, and keep on rocking. Now, time to work on the shocks. The kit, it calls for a KYB, part number 343039. Couldn't get that shock in a timely fashion, so this is the crossover in a Monroe. A shock to shock, in my opinion, when it comes to this kind of stuff that's going to get minimal miles put on it. Obviously, we have the lower stud that's made into our lower bracket here. And then the upper bracket is kind of what looks like a universal job because it doesn't really match up that well, but we're going to make it work. Went ahead and ground the frame here a little bit to where we know it's going to go. We're over here on the passenger side, and I had to bend this ear just ever so slightly to get it where it likes to live. Same thing, I clearanced out the inner fender there, and what I did to get all of this figured out is I took the shock, put it on the lower stud. As you see, I have my pole jack here, and I have the control arm fully compressed all the way to the bump stop, which I think I'm going to replace the bump stop. Actually, it's deteriorating. I think it's going to fall off the first few times I sit it down on them. So I'm going to replace that. I put it all the way to the bump stop, and I take and I come here, compress the shock all the way down. You know, obviously you want to make sure that you don't have any interference here or with the control arm there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack it, a couple little tacks around, run the suspension through the motions up and down a couple times just to make sure there's no binding or anything funny, which there shouldn't be with a double A arm system. We're going to be good. But what I'm going to do on this is, you can see here, I'll try to, there we go. We can get it all the way down, right? And you can see the hole right there at the top. It's just slightly above the frame. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let the shock kind of travel up a little bit, maybe half an inch right there, because I don't want the shock to be what bottoms out. Just give it a little extra room so that when it hits the bump stop, we still have a little shock travel. I don't know, I kind of think it's rough on the shocks. With the shock brackets tacked in, we got everything kind of put back in place. Just everything kind of hand tight. This is just the mock-up stage. Still got a long way to go before we finish weld everything and finalize everything. Remember on the cups, we put the hole in the side, ran the air line through. Now, I'll show you the other side. We did it a little differently. They're not the same side to side because the frames are not the same side to side. Popped a hole right here, ran our air hose through, and what I like to do is I like to take some good fuel injection fuel line anywhere that the hose, now look, it's not resting against it. It just kind of floats through the hole. I'll take a little bit of WD-40 and just slip the hose over it so it fully encapsulates the line. So if it has any kind of little vibration, it's going to be a long time before it ever rubs through that and gets to the airline. Comes down here to our first little clamp, to our first body mount, which you can see runs the full length of the frame. There was nowhere to go with this. So just popped a hole in it, both sides, clamp, Oh, don't miss the, don't mind the non-existent floorboard. It'll go, just follow the frame rail. I ran out of clamps. Oop, come around the lift. So there'll be a couple more clamps along the way. It'll come up right to a hole I popped in the floor. The driver's side wasn't too bad. Passenger side, it was tricky, and I'll show you why. Over here, we can't just pop it up through the floor because we have our exhaust. You don't want to get this line anywhere near the exhaust. So the same thing, we ran it along there, but we zip tied it to the fuel line. And then right there, or we can see it better from the inside. Whoop. Let's see. Can you see it? There we go. The line just comes right there, rubber grommet, of course, and just goes up into the trunk. Golly, need some looby dooby on those. Goes around through here. Whoop, skip the lift. Comes up the front. Now we went, yep, over this one. Went through that body mount like we did on the other side. But we went through this slit here. Once again, this is just resting. It actually worked out really well, where it's not putting any real pressure against it. And it goes through there, up under, to the back cup. There's a bunch of different ways you can run these lines. Like I said, factory, I think they really wanted us to go up, but the control arm moves a lot through there, and it's really close to the manifolds, and then you have the air lines kind of like looping around. Then, if you want to be real slick with it, you could hard line it, you know, run actual stainless or NICOP lines front to rear. It's a lot of work. Or you could, anywhere it passes through the frame, if you're worried about the rubbing or abrasion, you could do bulkheads. Don't have any. So this works fine. I've done it this way on several cars that's had a lot of miles put on them, and they've all been fine. Just, yeah, just take your time and really plan your routing out. Anywhere it comes anywhere near steel, either slide some of the fuel hose over it, or you can slit the side of the fuel hose, clamp it over the air line, and then just zip tie it. Either way, it's going to be protected. Now for the wiring part. I'll be honest with you, the wiring's not done. The wiring won't be done for a little while until we get some interior stuff finished up. I still need to get an ignition switch so we can have a dedicated switch 12 volt to work everything. So some of this is just kind of temporarily little mocked up, rigged up, whatever you want to call it. I'll walk you through how I did it. It's a little different. It's a little different than the way the kit comes, but I think it'll still work. I know it'll still work. It's the way I've done the rest of them. We're gonna start from the front, work our way back. Not all of it's tied up and tidy yet. The instructions are great. I don't know where they're at. They're over there. Instructions are great. They have it all laid out in a nice diagram, but once you get it in a car and you start snaking all these different compressor harnesses and stuff around between each other, it gets kind of confusing. So reference the kit, reference the schematics. You can find them online as well. ABS has them, Airlift has them, but I'll just show you how I ran this stuff. So starting from the battery. All right, on this car, we have this little junction block right here. So took a little bit of 4 gauge around to a 60 amp resettable circuit breaker. So if it ever has any issue and it pops like that, you can just reset it. Not like the little fuse thing that comes here, whereas if you have an issue and the fuse blows, you got to have more of these, and that can get expensive if you're diagnosing something. So just, yeah, little resettable fuse block, and that'll run down into a little hole I bored in the firewall with a rubber grommet. Remember, rubber grommet everything. So you can see it kind of comes down the toe board. Once again, we got to get that all tucked away. But until we have a kick panel and carpet, it makes it a little tougher to do all that. We just know not to stomp on it for the moment. You can see right here, traveling up, is going to be our controller harness. So we went ahead and ran it up under the dash, and we're going to put some kind of cool little mount right here, kind of under the radio area for our controller. Boop, right here. But for now, we just got it loose. We're in the testing, mock-up, stage, whatever you want to call it. Also ran with that is our 12 volt switch, which what we're going to do is just run that conveniently out the window to an alligator clip. That'll be good enough for now. Then we get everything squared away. You can see it runs down the rocker up into the trunk. So we have our 4 gauge and our other wires that we ran to the front. The 4 gauge comes up and around to this really sweet little distribution block. Little eBay special that works really nice for us. Has this cool little cap that comes over. It's got 4 main lugs as well as these little ones. I'm probably gonna end up putting a stereo in this, so it'll have stereo power, everything we need for all of our fun stuff in the back. Now this, like I said, looks like a mess. It's a lot of wire ties, but I don't want to tie all this stuff up until I test it and know if it works. So it's just all kind of laid in the general area for the moment. Got both of our relays, main compressor, second compressor, the fuse for the second compressor, all that's on this side. That wiring ties in with our main harness that comes up here to the manifold, and it sits there nice and pretty like that. Now, here's a question for everyone. How do you mount your manifolds? I have never had an issue with these. I've mounted a lot of manifolds in a lot of different orientations. Never really had a major issue with them, but also never really kept them very long. You know, I build cars, I enjoy them for 4, 3, or 6 months. So I've never seen a problem mounting them in any direction, but according to our instructions here from Airlift, it's telling me that the manifold has to be above here. I've never seen that in all the kits I put in, but it makes sense. They're saying for water collection. Same thing with the manifold orientation. It's got ideal, acceptable, unacceptable. It doesn't have what I'm doing, but I'm only going to assume what I did is probably unacceptable because they don't want the water to accumulate against the valves. And I get it, it makes sense, but I've never had a problem with it. I'm going to call the tech line on Monday and just ask. They're saying that for freezing conditions. Well, we're in Georgia. When it does get freezing, this stuff, all my stuff, sits inside. I don't think it'll be a problem. If it is an issue, I'll probably take this mount. Imagine this, I'm just gonna probably bring it up and flatten it. That way, none of the water can accumulate down the lines against the valves, and it gets it above the compressors and tank. But for now, I just wanna see if the system powers up and functions. Fingers crossed. Let's see if we can get this system to make any kind of noise. Battery connected, positive, negative. Our circuit breaker, okay, should have power to it. Now for this little guy, in theory, will it make noise? Well, oh, I see. Oh. There we go. There we are. Pump's making some noise. Let's see. Oh, we're getting some air pressure. That's exciting. Yeah, screen's lit up. Going to do a little bit of programming here, and yeah, let's think this thing actually has a chance. Here we are next day after finishing up all the Airride stuff, at least the mock-up stage of it. Filled the bags last night while it was on the cribbing blocks and wanted to just see if we had any leaks or not. You can take some soapy water in a spray bottle, go around all the fittings, at least all the ones you can see, give them a squirt. I didn't see anything, and surprisingly enough, I'll show you. We had these set at 70, let's see. Yeah, I think it was 78 and it was 90 in the back. And you can see barely any drop. And also, it's a little cooler today, so maybe that has a factor in it. According to the instructions, if you have less than 10 pounds of drop in 8 hours, that's acceptable. And anything, I think it was 5 pounds in 8 hours was optimal. We're right there. So I don't believe there's any air leaks we need to address. I would not have guessed that. As you can see, she still looks pretty stock, aired up. Don't know what the exact pressures are going to be, but for now, that'll be the go over speed bumps, go through, you know, like a grassy pasture on the way to a car show or something. This is what it'll look like. Now we're gonna roll it outside. It finally stopped raining. We're gonna see what this thing looks like outside, and then we just go ahead and let them bags on out and see what she looks like down in the weeds. All right, got her rolled outside. Here sitting up nice and tall, looking stock as a rock. As you can see, we have our ignition switch on. And here we go, our cool remote. Yeah, that's cool. You have a remote. You can do what you need to do from there. But one of the biggest advantages to this kit, we can control it from the phone. It's pretty sweet. Now, this is legitimately the first time I've tried this, so let's see. Oh! Yes, sir. Sitting on down there. There we go. My fault. Didn't hit both buttons at the same time. The way this will work eventually, once I have everything calibrated, it'll be, you'll have individual front up, individual front down for all 4 corners. And you have 5 presets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can have, let's say, in the weeds, ride height. You can just pick what you want, maybe a valet or a wife button. So pretty cool. I mean, just look at this. Look at this stand. Whoa, here we go. We even got more out of it. Here we go. Look at this guy now. I mean, she's laying on the ground. Well, not on the ground, but pretty stinking close. I would say the frame's maybe an inch from the ground. You can see we're tucking more than the center hub in the rear. We're tucking a lot of the front. That kit just added a whole new attitude to this car. To say I'm excited is an understatement. I've had a couple bagged cars in my life, but they were all the manual paddle valves. I've installed some AccuAir and Airlift stuff before for other people. It's the first one that's actually mine. It's pretty cool. The fact that it's aired out actually makes the car look longer, if that's somehow possible. Just soak that silhouette in for a second. Look how you can just see right through the center. Those body lines. Man, if this isn't cool, I don't know what is. Don't pay any attention to more paint missing on the back. That's I have to explain that in the next video. All in all, it was a pretty straightforward installation. Big shout out to Phil at Twisted Images. His kit was great. Couple little things, had to get a little longer bolt here, bend a bracket there, but I'll go ahead and tell you, every kit I've installed needs some modification. A little grinding, a little cutting, it's fine. I do recommend doing it the way I did here, where we just tack everything up, mock it up, because I found I want to move a little bracket here and tuck a little line there. Little minor stuff, but you wouldn't know, or you wouldn't know it unless you checked it. And now we have the opportunity to change it. It's going to be sweet. Probably another day on it, and everything will be done, tucked up, wired up, good to go. But for now, I mean, I can't keep my eyes off of this thing. Thanks for sticking around. We appreciate. Like, subscribe, share. A large portion of our viewers are not subscribed, so we'd appreciate it if you hit that button. Get us on up there, show us a little love, and we're going to show you some love by continuing to put out some cool videos, do some cool projects, and keep cranking out some heaters like this. So until next time, see ya.